In 2001, June of 2001, I actually had a very, very different life. I was an executive in the pharmaceutical industry and for a very long time was not feeling congruent with the choices that I was being asked to make in the name of my profession. However, I had developed a very lucrative career and did not really feel like I should listen to the true callings of my heart. I was kind of ignoring what my heart was telling me in the name of logic, which was really just fear in disguise. And my company at the time had rented out during the World Congress of Neurology, they had rented out the Tower of London to present the results for a new neurological drug. And I stepped out of the conference briefly to go across the street to get some water and to get a soft drink. And as most Americans do when they first come to London after flying a red eye, I did not look the correct way when I stepped into the intersection to cross the street. I don't even think I looked at all. And I didn't see the double-decker red bus coming directly for me that pummeled me about 30 to 35 feet into the intersection. And I had somewhere very important to be that evening. I had to help my neurologists present their data for this pivotal clinical trial. So I was knocked unconscious, and then a few moments later kind of came to, noticed that my knees were a little bit bloody and my suit had some holes in it, and I got up and dusted off my bloody knees, went into the presentation, saw through my professional commitment, and then went to the emergency room. That's how stubborn I am when certain things are not necessarily playing out the way that I thought they should. When I'm not listening to my heart, sometimes it will take a double-decker red bus to pummel me into a new direction. And in many ways, we're all kind of that way. We find ourselves in situations or circumstances that perhaps we're not fully aligned with. We're not congruent. We're not living according to our heart and our heart-centered integrity. And so these situations or circumstances will often present themselves as a placeholder in our awareness to get our attention. So from my point of view, getting hit by that double-decker bus in 2001 was one of the best experiences that I could have had, because it really led me to begin questioning, what are the true callings of my heart? What am I really in integrity with? And how do I create a life that will enable the inner me to match the life situation and circumstances without? Now, the book is not about Melissa Joy getting hit by a bus in London, but I wanted to share with you that experience kind of has brought me full circle as I have the opportunity to share with you some of the gifts that are in the Art of Limitless Living here in Watkins in London, where my journey began many, many, many years ago. Since that time, I have been teaching life transformational seminars around the globe, primarily with an angle of really taking spiritual principles, metaphysical principles, and distilling them down in a very practical, experiential manner. In 2014, I launched the EMM Joy Movement, which is a movement that is absolutely committed to heart-centered awareness, a commitment to integrity and practical personal empowerment for everyone. And what is woven throughout the book, The Art of Limitless Living, is a very practical angle for what we are experiencing individually as well as collectively. Because right now, humanity is in a position that we have never been before. And I think you probably would have to be dead to not be aware of all of the traditional prevailing paradigms that are beginning to unravel, that are beginning to reconfigure. And if we're viewing our situations and our circumstances personally or collectively from a point of view of just seeing what's happening at the surface, it can feel really, really scary. And yet, what we have the opportunity to do is to view what appears to be happening from the field of the heart, to view what appears to be happening from a vertical perspective that enables us to recognize that things are not really falling apart. They are, in fact, coming together in an entirely new way. What is written in The Art of Limitless Living is not so much how do you change your life so you can become something better? The entire book, as all of the EMM Joy teachings, is written from a point of view that you already are what you wish to become, that you already are a consciousness of completion, and that you have all of the ingredients that you need within you in order to orchestrate an extraordinary life. And being able to recognize that and embody that is what is gifted throughout the Art of Limitless Living. So often we relate to ourselves through our schemas, through the perceptual filters, the way that we've encoded our experiences in the past. And we can't even really see what is actually happening because we're often seeing through a lens of awareness based on how we've encoded information in the past. Well, the field of the heart has no filters. The field of the heart does not segregate and compartmentalize information based on our experiences. The field of the heart is, in fact, a consciousness of completion. And we live in a society that isn't necessarily geared toward teaching us to trust our heart, teaching us to trust that we have an innate knowing without knowing how we know. Our intuition is the language of heart-centered awareness. Now, the heart-centered awareness that I'm referring to and that is referenced throughout the Art of Limitless Living, it's not the physical heart. It's not even the heart chakra that many of you here may be familiar with from your metaphysical or New Age studies. The field of the heart that I am talking about is not even the electromagnetic field of the heart that prominent HeartMath Institute has been able to scientifically document exists, that we're all living in one another's heart fields. The heart field that I am referring to is the non-local, non-electromagnetic component of the field of the heart that then connects into and feeds into our experience of three-dimensional reality. Now, the science of heart-centered awareness is it's unpacked slightly in the Art of Limitless Living, more so in some of my prior books. An understanding of the science is not necessary in order to experience being in the field of the heart. In fact, to me, heart-centered awareness is as easy as breathing. It's as easy as breathing, and in many instances, we have been holding our breath. We have been holding our breath through the misnomers of the advantages of logic, which in many, many ways is just fear in disguise. In many ways, we lead with what we believe to be our mind, but it's really the schematic organizing filters that we've been wearing that often wear at us. So when we allow ourselves to return to our natural state, to the field of the heart, we're able to bypass the perceptual filters of the mind. We're able to bypass even the holographically encoded experiences of trauma and drama that often keep us in a closed loop. When we embody heart-centered awareness, we're actually able to access the only part of ourselves that knows itself as being inherently whole and fundamentally complete. And truly, the embodiment of heart-centered awareness is it is the part of ourselves that we are all waiting for. Now, I would be willing to bet that every single person that's sitting here during this live presentation and everyone that's watching the YouTube recording at a later time has a reference for being in the field of the heart. And oftentimes a question will come up that, how do I really know? And, after writing 4 books that all include the physics of heart-centered awareness and teaching the embodiment of heart-centered awareness around the world for more than a decade, I've really come to the conclusion that nobody other than you can really confirm when you are trusting and listening to the field of your heart. And when we are in the field of the heart, it's really more or less just the way things are. It's our normal state, and so oftentimes we don't really even notice it. What we do notice is what takes us out of our hearts. So let's just do this for a moment. want you to kind of think about something, and don't just kind of, really think about something that's going on in your life right now that feels like a struggle, feels like a challenge, feels like a problem. It can be a condition, it can be a pattern in your life, in your finances, it can even be a relationship, because everything is you in relation to absolutely everything. And go ahead and give this pattern a location in your field. This is one of the exercises that is available in the Art of Limitless Living. Give it a location in your field. And when I say that, I mean X marks the spot. Just wherever your attention goes, let that be the Post-it note that represents your problem or your challenge. Or it could even be an opportunity that you've not yet actualized. And as X marks the spot, I invite you to move your awareness fully into where that pattern is located. And as your awareness moves into X marks the spot, pay attention, and or play attention, as I like to say. Play attention to your physiology, pay attention to your thoughts, your sensations, your perceptions. What's going on for you? Particularly in your physiology, in your nervous system. What's going on for you when you're out miring in the spiraling vortex of whatever it is that you're concerned about? Does anyone want to share? Major thing is a fear. Okay, and what is your body physiology doing in response to that fear?
I breathe quicker.
I'm breathing quicker?
Yes, and not as deep as I should.
So shallow breathing.
Exactly.
Shallow breathing. Do you feel kind of tense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. See, body physiology does not lie. How about you, ma'am?
Pulls me out of my own centre.
Pulls me out of my own...
I'm kind of leaning towards rather than... So I'm not stable in my own physiology.
I'm not stable in my own physiology. I'm pulled out of my own center. I'm sort of leaning forward. You're on tilt. Beautiful. Who else? Does anyone else want to share? Tightening of the solar plexus. People do have that with fear a lot, and it can go on for hours. Did you know that the physiology of fear and excitement is exactly the same, but it is not until the mind interprets the emotion, has a thought that then creates the feeling that then gets labeled as fear? It's kind of interesting. There's a whole chapter in the Art of Limitless Living about how our nervous system responds to information, and that you can make distinctions between intuitive hits as emotions and feelings that are thoughts with a charge. And most of our fears are actually feelings that are thoughts with the charge based on how we interpret it. I'm not going to leave you in this anxious state. How about you, gentlemen in the back over there? Gentlemen and ladies. Didn't see you. Yes.
Okay, I felt more tense.
You felt more
Yeah,
tense.
a little bit disorientated. Not just sorry, no, I'll correct that. I felt a bit more tense and kind of like a little shift out of my relaxed, balanced state.
Beautiful, beautiful. So more tense, a shift out of a relaxed, balanced state. Pretty consistent physiological responses by a simple movement in awareness. Now I want to invite everyone here to bring your awareness into an embodied presence. Okay? Now the field of the heart technically spans anywhere from the throat chakra down to the base of the pelvic floor, but as you'll learn in the Art of Limitless Living, it actually includes the whole physical body because the field of the heart is all inclusive. So simply bring your awareness into the area that you feel most comfortable as identifying with the field of the heart. And as you bring your awareness in, pay attention or play attention to your physiology. Do you naturally relax? Do you find that the tension or the stress dissipates? Do you find that the spiraling in the solar plexus sort of stops? Now I want you to do one more movement exercise, and that is to bring that pattern, that X marks the spot pattern, bring that into the field of the heart. Integrate that into this universal recycler of counter-rotating torsion fields that take all expression and distinction and return it to potential. Just drop it into your heart. And as you do that, also pay attention to your physiology. If you felt a little resistance about dropping something that you think you don't want into the field of your heart, it's very, very normal. And yet when we try to siphon out or push away patterns rather than integrating them, that is where it creates a closed loop, or in quantum physics, a collapse of the wave function, so the pattern has no breathing room to change. What did you notice as you brought the pattern into your heart? Was yours just getting on the tube and getting here on time? Beautiful. So when she returned to her heart and then dropped the pattern into her heart, she noticed instantly her heart rate slowed down and that sort of anxiety or the tension just dissipated. Who had a similar experience? Almost all of you. Almost all of you. So the thing is that being in the field of the heart it truly is our natural state. I like to share the metaphor, and I do so in a more expansive manner in the Art of Limitless Living, because there's so much science behind this, but for it to be accessible, it needs to be relatable, and it needs to be kind of easy, or our brain goes, oh, there's science. That is something that I'm not good at, and so we turn ourselves away. Or if we're really good at science, we're like, oh, well, I really like the science, and then we stay in our mind and we start ruminating about the scientific principles rather than allowing ourselves to have the experience. And so if we were to ask ourselves how we know we're in the field of the heart, I like to think about the metaphor of fish that breathe underwater, because we as human beings just don't understand that. I mean, we scientifically can understand how it's possible, but we can't really relate to that experience. So if we were to ask fish, how do you breathe underwater? The fish would have no reference for that experience. They would just say, this is simply the way things are. This is just the way we function. Okay? If we were to take a school of fish and swoop them up out of their natural state and hoist them above the ocean in midair, invariably those fish would be tense, they would feel fear, they would have difficulty breathing, their state would constrict, and if held in that unnatural environment for a sufficient amount of time, they would eventually experience entropy and death. That's what happens to our fields and to our being when we are out of our hearts. Now, if we drop ourselves back down into the field of the heart, if we drop those fish down into the ocean, all of a sudden the fish would say, oh, I now understand your question. I now understand how you're asking me, how do I breathe underwater? Because I've got references and distinctions for what it's like to be out of my natural state. And so a lot of what is woven through the Art of Limitless Living, or the Heart of Limitless Living, which was my title, but it didn't get picked up by the publisher, is how to recognize what takes you out of your heart, and then how to learn to consistently be in the heart and to integrate the heart with the mind, heart-mind synthesis. Because our mind is a very powerful receiver of information, but our mind used exclusively without the holonomic properties of the field of the heart means that we're getting access to limited information. And so what you really learn in the Art of Limitless Living is not just to embody the field of the heart, because that's something that we all can naturally do, but how to couple the field of the heart with the mind and the laser-like focus of the intellect to be able to make choices that are congruent and in integrity with the field of the heart. I talk about the integrity effect in the Art of Limitless Living as not some external moral standard that somebody else created that you have to constantly strive to reach in order to be okay. The integrity effect is really about being undivided within oneself, living coherently and congruently such that all of your external life circumstances reflect integrity in action. And so integrity is actually our natural state. Integrity is the coherence of heart-centered awareness coupled with making choices that are aligned with the true callings of the heart. And there's so much more that's in the Art of Limitless Living. There's a whole chapter on freedom from addictions because, as I state in the book, we're all addicts. Whether we are addicted to social media, whether we're addicted to drugs or alcohol or relationships or drama, what we are all addicted to is the very same neurochemistry that is produced in the presence of love. And when we are not able to embody self-love from within, we will look for that natural state in all the wrong places. And so all of our addictions are truly placeholders that are there to reflect some aspect of self-love or not loving self that we've not yet recognized. And there are processes for supporting you in moving beyond the addictions as distractions without shame, without blame, without leveraging the very same emotions that will also often steer us more so into the addictions. So whether you're just unable to get off your social media or you just define yourself, say through your work, within those same patterns is the same neurochemistry that we run when we are experiencing the presence of love. I've been advised that we are just about at the time where I am going to open to questions, and I know that that was a lot of information about different aspects of the chapter of the book. What a lot of people have said to me that have read the book is that they feel like they're changing just as they're reading it, because the book itself is actually, as you heard in the introduction, it's hologrammed, it's encoded with information, and that encoding, they're like key codes. They support you in moving from where you perceive yourself to be to where you truly authentically desire. And so if you're one of those people that doesn't really like to do exercises when you read books, because I'm that way, there is an opportunity to experience yourself transforming simply by reading the language of light that is woven throughout the entire book. If you do love practical, experiential practices, each chapter has what I refer to as practical play, which is an opportunity to implement the principles that were shared in the previous chapter. And so by the end of the book, which was actually written before the rest of the book, by the end of the book, you've gone through a series of successive changes, which, when held consistently, can create a template for a new reality. So some people actually read the end of the book first, and then they go to the middle of the book, or they just read it like a tarot deck. They open it to a random page, knowing that there's no such thing as random. Everything's interconnected and interrelated and synchronistic, and then they get the exact information that they're looking for. So I hope that you take the opportunity to pick up a copy of The Art of Limitless Living. I will be signing copies here and answering any questions that you have right now, if you have any questions. Just to repeat what he said in short, is this book about living in the now, or is this book about planning for the future? And my response would be, it's absolutely both. It's absolutely both, because we've got to make some changes in the way we're relating to ourselves now and make some different choices now that allow for differing outcomes to unfold in the future. And really, holographically, this is why I love the physics, every moment encodes for every other moment. And so the now moment actually holds all of the past, all of the present, and all of the future. So whether you choose to plan in the future to change your now, or you choose to change your now in order to change your future, holographically it makes no difference. So I'm all about making it practical, because if you're studying principles that you can't put to play in your everyday life, then it gets relegated and compartmentalized as being something that's beyond your reach and not useful in everyday, every way living. And so it is both. It is both changing the way that you're holo-framing your reality now, so that the possibilities become heavily weighted probabilities that are more likely to actualize toward your desired intention in the future. It's both, and it happens simultaneously in the Art of Limitless Living.
How does it help you
Living-
make a plan?
how does that help you to make a plan? Well, it's the difference between making a plan in order to be happy, in order to be complete, versus embodying that completion and then making choices that are an extension of that completion that play out as a plan. Yeah, and it's a different physics. So you're putting a different physics at play into your life, and then your life ripples out accordingly. And I'll just add one more comment, because I understand the program around, oh, you got to suffer now in order to experience bliss later, and I think that's a sucky program. I think that there is a different program that could be running that says, all right, I'm willing to make some small sacrifices now that are simply choices, really. They're choices as distinctions. Suffering doesn't have to go hand in hand with that. Growth and manifestation does not have to be painful. It can actually be a joyful experience. It's not always easy. It requires discipline, and this is where we also get tripped up kind of in the New Age community, is because like we think, oh, life is miraculous, and all I have to do is click my heels 3 times and everything's going to be hunky-dory. And that's not really an ascended framework of consciousness. You need to have both feet on the ground while you ascend into your multidimensional awareness, while you ascend into being your own creator. And so planning is absolutely necessary. I'm currently on a 6-month round-the-world tour, which required a tremendous amount of planning. And yet within that planning, there's been immense synchronicities. There's been a lot of flow. This particular event this evening is part of that flow. Had I not planned to make choices that were aligned with the heart, this never would have happened. However, this never would have happened if my heart hadn't given me the message to plan the Art of Limitless Living Around the World Tour. You get the difference in that. So what she's found is when she's been in her heart and she's been vulnerable, people have been people and let her down. And so she's found that it's safer to actually switch off the heart and be in the mind. And I can understand because that's probably the most common reason why people sort of abandon the heart and sort of do a mini version of a soul betrayal, because logic feels safer. The mind creates a false sense of control. And what I've learned and what is shared throughout of the Art of Limitless Living is that that true authentic power is the language of an open heart, and vulnerability is actually what gives us access to our infinite potential. And it's not just the heart or the mind. It's not an either or, it's actually an and as inclusion. And if you allow yourself to be in the heart first and trust the mind to follow the true callings of the heart, you will not be betrayed. You will not be betrayed. And in fact, what you develop is something known as choice with discernment. You're actually more able to intuitively discern who is worthy of trusting, who is worthy of me letting into my all-inclusive circle of grace that is a facet of heart-centered awareness. So that's available for you within the Art of Limitless Living, switching off from being in the mind first. I grew up in an environment where my father was an engineer, so logic, and if you couldn't touch it, it wasn't real. And my mother was very intuitive and emotional. And then they divorced. I share this in the book. They divorced, and then all of a sudden I was a house divided between trusting my heart and my intuition versus using my mind. And what I learned over several decades was that I kind of had the best of both worlds in that separation, because I learned how to bridge the gap between the two. And it's not just the heart at the exclusion of the mind, and it's not the mind at the exclusion of the heart. It's heart-mind synthesis, and that is a gateway to extraordinary living. Thank you. He read about something known as the 24 fields, which is something that I teach in my live seminars. All 24 of the fields are hologrammed into the Art of Limitless Living without the direct information. In a prior book that I published, known as Little Book of Big Potentials, I unpack the fields. What I found, though, was that many people just wanted access to the power that those fields made available to them without necessarily wanting to study a whole system. So the system is woven through the Art of Limitless Living, which is what makes the Art of Limitless Living so powerful. So many of our experiences, particularly at the collective level, are not not the result of our individual choices, but they're a result of the collective morphic field blueprints that are guiding what becomes probable and more likely to occur. And when you learn to modify your resonance through field flow from the field of the heart, then that opens you into creating energies and experiences that are based on your own innate limitless potential. So it's not unpacked in the book, but however, you will get the downloads of the fields in the Art of Limitless Living in a very easy to understand, practical, experiential manner. I can't necessarily answer the question without going extensively into the physics, other than what I will say, and this is also shared in the Art of Limitless Living, is that when we embody the field of the heart, it's a counter-rotating torsion field. And what the counter-rotating torsion fields do is connect us up directly with the non-local interlocking torsion fields that are signal generators and signal receivers of all information in the unified field. So what happens when you're in your heart, you are embodying the exact same physics that effectively universal consciousness utilizes in order to create absolutely everything. So heart-centered awareness encodes for a physics of anything as possible. Heart-centered awareness connects you up with your own personal intuition channel and also the transpersonal fields that are projecting and reflecting into our three-dimensional experience. So it's a holographic science, and when you embody the field of the heart, which is a portal into your own total hologram, then you're basically connecting into the non-local, non-linear layer of consciousness where everything is one before that oneness expresses through distinctions in 3D and appears to be separate. And so it's really the key to intuition, it's the key to connection, it's the key to instantaneous healing, it's the key to clairvoyance, it's the key to free energy. It's the same physics that Nikola Tesla was talking about before he stopped talking about it. And that's the physics of us. And heart-centered awareness is what we are, and we are that physics. And that's what is available through the Art of Limitless Living. So thank you very, very much. And I will be here this evening signing books and answering any quick questions that you have during the signing. Very honored so many of you showed up this evening. Being from Southern California and American, I'm a little bit of a fish out of water here in the United Kingdom, and you made me feel very, very welcome. And I'm just so honored to see you all, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. Thank you very much.